Hey, welcome back. The Sixth Floor Museum in Dallas tells the story of two heroes of the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy. University of Mississippi. Professor Ellen Meacham speaks at the museum tonight, author of the new book, Delta Epiphany, Robert F. Kennedy in Mississippi. So these two, I simply assumed, just because of time and subject matter, that the two knew each other well and were close and worked together.
That is a common assumption, and it's understandable, but they really didn't. They came from very different backgrounds, very different worlds, and they had different experiences which shaped what they thought needed to be done. And Kennedy especially, you know, was raised in a very privileged kind of background with a lot of advantages, and traveled the world with his father. And now his family emphasized public service for sure, but he had not had much experience in the South. He didn't understand the segregated South like like Martin Luther King, which lived that experience.
Now, so what was RFK's Delta Epiphany, as you call it?
Well, in 1967, he went to Mississippi as part of a Senate subcommittee, fact-finding mission, basically. And Martin Luther King had actually written to President Johnson the year before about sort of the unfolding tragedy and hunger and poverty, especially in the Mississippi Delta, but got not a lot of attention, not a lot of response. And so Kennedy went to look at war on poverty programs, but what he saw took it from the sort of the abstract or policy to the concrete, hungry children, children who were suffering. And it moved him to write to Dr. King, because he came back to Washington with this assumption, okay, these are children who are hungry, let's feed them.
Right.
And he wrote King and said, I understand now what you're talking about. And I'm interested in your ideas and what you have to do. So,
right. There's a fascinating story about a couple of photographs, one of which is on the cover of your book, one of which is in your book. Tell me about those photographs and where they came from. There's a connection
Dallas
to here.
Connection, right. It runs right through Dallas. I was searching for photographs to illustrate my book, and I found there was a photo at the JFK archives that I recognized that I hadn't seen any other photos from that style of photographer. And I started searching, and I found David Gurovich and Melinda Gurovich. David is the son of Dan Gurovich, who took the photo. It was unattributed until I tracked it down, and they had some, I called them up, and I'm sure they thought I was crazy, but David and Melinda were very generous to let me see the photos, and they were previously unpublished photos of the trip, and they're amazing. Yeah,
there was some communication between the two. Kennedy wrote back to King, and what directly came out of that, if anything?
It's hard to say, because there's no evidence of King writing back, but Kennedy sent a message through Marion Wright Edelman and said, tell Dr. King to bring the poor people to Washington. And that was something that they had been talking about, and the Poor People's Campaign, which we saw a lot about last week, ended up traveling to DC, and they were there when both men were assassinated.
And quickly, at the Sixth Floor Museum, the lives of these two, the exhibit, how they intersect. They may not have directly intersected, but they were certainly working in parallel.
It's a great way to see this exhibit and understand America in that context, and what they were seeing and what they thought needed to be done and still needed to be done.
Thank you so much. You are going to be speaking tonight at the Sixth Floor Museum at 7 o'clock.
Come on out.
And you can find more information on that and a link to your book and to the Sixth Floor Museum on fox4news.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you.